Realization of Oneness by Joel S. Goldsmith. Chapter 1. Pure being. For thousands of years, man has held God responsible for the evils of this world, believing that he rewards and punishes, that he is responsible for the accidents, diseases, and disasters of this earth, that tornadoes, cyclones, hurricanes, and tidal waves are acts of God. For thousands of years, too, man has been commanded, "And thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thine heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy might." But is it possible for a person to love a God who at one moment may reward and bless, and who at the next moment, for no reason whatsoever, may visit horrible disasters, accidents, and death upon him? There is no way to love the Lord thy God, except by understanding and becoming convinced that evil does not have its rise in God, and that neither sin, disease, accident, death, famine, storm, nor drought, none of these comes forth from God. Only in the degree that we can disassociate God from being the cause of evil can we become free of it, because the evil in our experience stems from the belief that God, in some way, is responsible for it. This misconception as to the nature of God was evident in the earliest days of the Hebrew people when they turned hopefully to God for their blessings, but at the same time feared his cursing. This is well illustrated in the story of Noah and the ark, because Noah was a good and upright man. God was going to save him, and he, therefore, instructed him to build an ark and fill it with all manner of beasts, with cattle, creeping things, and fall with which to provide for him and his family. But the same God how is going to do that, for Noah was going to destroy all flesh, wherein is the breath of life. Too, is it possible that Noah was the only holy or righteous man on earth, even were that true, and all other men wicked? From whence would cometh their capacity to be evil? Where but from God? And if from God, why then would God punish them? And if God did not give man the capacity to sin, where would he receive this capacity, since God is his Father, his creative principle, and the source of all there is? Perhaps in those days the people did not have the wisdom to raise such questions. They had only the darkness of superstition and ignorance, and therefore they blessed God when he blessed them, and cursed him when disaster overtook them, believing that good and evil came forth from God. With the advent of that spiritual light which was embodied in the consciousness of Jesus Christ in its fullness, we are presented with a different God, a God in whom there is no darkness, a God too pure to hold iniquity, a God who demands of us that we be so pure that we even forgive our enemies and pray for those who despitefully use us. The God Jesus gave to the world is a God that demands of us that we hold no one in condemnation, that we visit no punishment on the sinner. Is man more loving and just than God? Is not God greater than we are? Is not the love of God greater than any love that we can express? Are not the wisdom and the justice of God greater than the wisdom and justice of man? To ascribe evil in any form to God is to make God lower than man, for of man it is demanded, "Be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect." No one would ever consider any man perfect who visited sin, disease, or death on another. Not for any reason. Even in this modern day, when civilization is still in its infancy, man is developing enough love and understanding so that capital punishment is gradually being eliminated. If man can be that just and considerate, how much more compassionate and understanding must God be? In some instances, this same consideration is now being extended to international relationships, so that today, instead of wreaking vengeance on a country which has waged war against us, we help bolster its tottering economy and strengthen its financial structure. If nations can do that, how much more can and does God do? How much more of love, intelligence, life, and purity is there in God? To ascribe less than perfection to God is sinful. It is blasphemy. Many of the discords from which we suffer have their roots in the universal belief that God visits these evils upon us, either to punish us, to teach us a lesson, or for some other reason. There are those who even believe what is often preached at some funeral services: God has called this dear one home. The calling home has often come about by way of cancer, consumption, or an automobile accident. It is blasphemous to believe that God operates in such a fashion. Nevertheless, the universal belief is that God is responsible for our troubles, and you and I are suffering from our ignorant and unconscious acceptance of that belief. We may not be aware of this, but it is so ingrained in consciousness that we suffer from it. To begin to set ourselves free from the penalties of universal beliefs, we must release God from all responsibility for the sins, diseases, deaths, droughts, lacks, and limitations of this world. We must honor our Father which is in heaven. We must love the Lord our God with all our heart and with all our soul, in the realization that he is too pure to behold iniquity or to cause it. He is the very light of the world, and in him is no darkness at all. Oneness of God and man, when that conviction becomes bone of our bone and flesh of our flesh, and when we have a God wholly good, we ourselves then are wholly good, for I and my Father are one. 4. Son, thou art ever with me, and all that I have is thine. 5. All the qualities we now attribute to God, all the purity, goodness, justice, love, and forgiveness, are in reality qualities of man, for God and man are one, just as the glass and the tumbler are one. What is the nature of the tumbler? Is there a tumbler, or is there just glass? Is the tumbler merely a name for the form as which the glass is appearing? Glass is the essence of the tumbler. Glass is its quality. How strong is the tumbler? As strong as the glass of which it is made. How beautiful is the tumbler? As beautiful as the glass of which it is made. And what of man and his relationship to God? Is not man but the form or the temple, and God the essence of his being? Is it any more possible to separate God from man than glass from the tumbler? Is not God the substance of man's life, of his mind, of his soul, and of his spirit? Is not even his body the temple of God? Once we perceive that oneness is the true relationship of God and man, and, at the same time, perceive the pure nature of God in whom there is no propensity for evil, man is also recognized as pure and upright, in whom there likewise is no propensity or capacity for evil. Before we can wipe sin, disease, death, accident, poverty, or injustice off this earth, we must first remove it from God. Then we shall have a universe showing forth God's glory, and God's glory can be only perfection itself. That hath seen me hath seen the Father. 6. For I and my Father Arion. The Father is greater than we are, because the Father is the substanced essence of being, and we are but the form which appears in infinite variety. Just as the glass is greater than the form it takes, and can be molded into a tumbler, a sauce dish, or a pepper shaker, with the glass always threatening the quality, essence, character, and nature of whatever form it takes, so is God the nature, essence, activity, and the law unto every form, including man, animal, plant, and mineral. The nature of man, then, is the nature of God expressed individually. Anthis man, therefore, must be the image and likeness of God, the showing forth of God. For man to be holy, God must be holy. For man to love his enemies, God must have no other feeling than love. For man to be forgiving, God must express no condemnation, no judgment, no punishment. Is it not clear, then, that the beginning of freedom for you and for me is to have God wholly good, God from whom can come forth nothing but spirit, eternality, and justice? God looked on what he had made, and behold, he found it very good. The goodness that is in God is innate in the goodness of his creation. But if we claim that God is wholly good, that still has no effect on our life as long as we are separate and apart from God. God may be wholly good, but we do not share in that goodness until we can perceive our oneness with God as heir of God and joint heir to all the heavenly riches, and accept the promise, Son, all that I have is thine. Unless we can see that oneness, it will be like believing that Jesus was wholly good, that he was the Son of God, but that we are not. What good is Jesus' perfection if it is not also our perfection? What good would come from God's being perfect if you and I were something separate and apart from God, subject to their influences? But we are not something separate and apart from God. I and my Father are one, and in that relationship of oneness the perfection of God is our perfection. And God's freedom from the capacity to sin or to suffer disease, lack, or limitation is also our freedom. Whatever goodness is being made manifest through us is God's goodness. Whatever immortality is the immortality of God. Whatever of love or of justice is the love or the justice of God. Whatever of intelligence is God's. His understanding is infinite. But what good is that to you or to me unless we are one with him? In that relationship of oneness, his infinite understanding becomes the measure and the capacity of our understanding. Only in oneness can that happen, and so the moment we declare the infinite, perfect, spiritual nature of God, we are also declaring the perfection of our own being. God is forever pouring itself forth in order to free ourselves from the limitations of human sense. We must understand the nature of God. God is not a power over evil, and we have not power over evil. To believe that God is a power over evil is to believe Thateful has an existence, and then we either must believe God to be the causing creator of it, or we must accept another cause and creator. And the acceptance of any other cause or creator does away with omnipotence, omniscience, and omnipresence. We must have only one creator, and that one without capacity for sin or any evil. Then we do not need a power over sin, disease, or death because these have no existence in God, and if they do not exist in God, they do not exist. They can exist only as beliefs in the human consciousness that believes in two powers, even believes that God has within itself 9 two powers: the power to reward and the power to punish, the power to give and the power to withhold. How we finitize God, how we limit God. How we make God just a bigger edition of mortals when we make him something that has the power to give or withhold sunshine, something that has the power to give or withhold crops. Such a belief places God in the same category as mortals. God is not like that at all. God cannot give sunshine, and God cannot withhold sunshine. God cannot give us life, and God cannot give us death. God is eternal life, and his life is the life of our being. He does not give it, he is it. God does not give us purity. God is our soul, and the soul of God being pure, our soul is pure. God does not give us wisdom. God is wisdom, but being infinite, God is our wisdom. There is no giving and there is no withholding. There is only is-ing. If there were a God life and our life, God life might be immortal and ours mortal. But if God is infinite, God is infinite life, and that means your life and my life. There is no God in evil to know him aright is life eternal. And as we begin to know God as complete, pure being, without any capacity to wipe out a nation or punish sinners, God that cannot visit disease on innocent persons or even on guilty sins, God that does not permit conditions of war or poverty, we have freed ourselves. Because much of the cause of evil in our lives is the belief that in some way God is the cause of it, the author, the creator, and the maintainer of it. When we come to know God aright, we have a God that we can love with all our heart and with all our soul, because we can look upon this world with its injustices, sins, and disasters, and be thankful that there is no God in any of the evils besetting mankind. When we have removed God from them, we have removed the substance from them, and they begin to destroy themselves. They begin to dissolve. God is never in any form of force, not by might, nor by power, but by me spirit. 10 There is no evil where my 11 spirit is, for where my spirit is, there is liberty. The world must awaken. It must awaken to the realization of the true nature of God in order to remove the cause of evil. Some persons believeth that wars are righteous, and that God is on one side or another. God on the side of people out killing. God on the side of people murdering innocent men and women and children. God could not be in a war. God is not in the whirlwind. God is not in the storm. God is in the still small voice. Overcoming idolatry when we come face to face with our fears, what do we find? We are usually fearing some person, thing, or condition, or, on the other hand, very often we may be worshipping some person, thing, or condition. Habakkuk had oured for it. What profiteth the graven image that the maker thereof hath graven it? The molten image, and a teacher of lies, that the maker of his work trusteth therein, to make dumb idols. Woe unto him that saith to the wood, Awake. To the dumb stone, Arise, it shall teach. Behold, it is laid over with gold and silver, and there is no breath at all in the midst of it. But the Lord is in his holy temple. Let all the earth keep silence before him. Habakkuk 2, 18-20 Many persons place their hopes and fears in persons or things. It may be in gold or silver. It may be in land or in securities, or even in social security. But when hope, ambition, and confidence are in something external, that is nothing more nor less than idolatry. All this disappears when we understand that the nature of God is the nature of individual being, and therefore there is no need to want some particular person, thing, or circumstance for whomebody are good. Son, thou art ever with me, and all that I have is thine. That I 12 have. Let us not worry about what somebody else has. All that I have is thine. The realization that God is our very own being. How can we fear, love, or hate gold or silver, germs or poisons, bullets or bombs? How can we furth that God or God's being can be destroyed? And is not God's being the essence and substance of our being? We are the tumbler, the form, but God is the essence and substance even of our bodies. We need not fear what mortals can do to us. We need not fear what mortal circumstances or conditions can do to us. God is the essence of our being, and in him there is no darkness. Therefore, in that of which we are formed, there is no capacitive or negative activity of any form or nature. But if we do not know the nature of God, how can we know the nature of our perfect self? If we do not credit God with being pure, how then can we be pure? We can be no more pure than our source, our essence, our substance. When we see evil in any form, in our own experience, in the experience of the world or of our neighbor, we can smile within ourselves as whereas there is no God in this. This never had its rise in God. It has no God substance, no God law. No God life, no God being. It is the arm of flesh. 13 nothingness 14 This immediately takes from evil its sting. We let it dissolve of itself and disappear from sight by removing from it that which gives it life. That is, the belief that it is of God, that it emanates from God, and that God is responsible for it. But if there is no evil in God, there is no evil at all, for God is the source of all creation. We need only to look at any situation and realize. There is no God in this, no power to sustain it, and no law of God to maintain it. There is no power but God. Then it must dissolve and disappear. This removes idolatry. It prevents us from loving, fearing, or hating that which has form, because we know that the real essence of all form is God. Any erroneous form that may appear has no existence except in the belief in two powers, or except in the belief that God caused it. Once we remove God as the cause, foundation, and source of evil, we have begun its dissolution. As human beings, we are living a life separate and apart from God, and as long as we do that, there is certain to be some good and some evil. This is because we have no clear-cut principle by which to live. We have not grasped the meaning of the omnipresence of God. We do not understand that where God is, I am, that the place whereon we stand is holy ground, that the presence of God is within us, that there is a God closer than breathing and nearer than hands and feet. 15 And that wherever we go, God goes with us. If we mount up to heaven, we find God there. If we make Arbed in hell, there too we find God. If we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, 16 God is there. But what is the nature of this presence that is with us? Is the presence of God going to reward us? Is it going to punish us? Is it going to heal us? Is it going to visit iniquity upon us unto the third and fourth generation? 17 Or is thy God that is with us a wholly good influence, a perfect influence, an influence for freedom, joy, and for infinite good in our life? The first step on the spiritual path is to become aware of God's presence, to live always as if God were bearing witness with us, as if God were going before us. Once that is attained, our next great unfoldment must be the nature of God, because this is the step that brings freedom and release from what the Master called this world. 18 To know God as that pure being in whom evil has no rise, no source, no foundation, no cause, and no power isto live in freedom, because if he is not the cause of evil, it has no cause. For God alone is law, life, substance, activity, and being. This makes it possible to overcome idolatry, because when we have a God of purity, there is nothing to fear. There is no person or thing which can have any qualities of evil derived from God. Anything derived from mortal consciousness is not of God, and therefore not power. So when we behold injustices, inequalities, sins, persecutions, and revilings, our answer should, so what? Be not afraid. None of this emanates from God, and therefore, you Pilate, couldst have no power at all against me. The only power that you have is that which is derived from God. What is not derived from God is not power. Around the globe, every kind of evil in international affairs will be dissolved, but it will be dissolved because there are now persons on earth knowing that these evils have no existence in God, and therefore they have no existence. They do not have their rise in God, therefore they have no power. Just 10 righteous men in a city can save it, a few hundred or a few thousand who can face every situation of human experience in the realization. You do not have your rise in God, so you are not power. You have no foundation in God, you have no power. You have no law of God to maintain or sustain you, you have no power. Then rest. Rest in his word. Rest in this word. Abide in this word. Dwell in the secret place of the Most. always looking out at these formations without hate, love, or fear, knowing that if they do not have their rise in God, they have no substance, no law, no cause, no effect. As we are able to prove a degree of freedom from these universal beliefs in our individual experience, we begin to free our neighbor, not because he asks us to pray for him, but because when we see his sins or his diseases, we know within ourselves. This has no rise in God, no foundation in God, it has no law of God. Be not afraid. Such a response to evil makes of every person an influence in the world because, even though he cannot physically be present all over the world, by his influence he will be imparting the truth of the all-power of God and the non-power of evil, so that he will be a part of a circle of Christhood around the globe. What is a circle of Christhood, except a circle of those who realize that evil does not have its rise in God, and therefore, it has no law and no substance to sustain it. By abiding in that truth, they watch it as it dissolves and disappears. That is the circle of Christhood. Those who do not accept evil as real, because they do not accept evil as having a foundation in God. The secret of the infinite way, the secret of the infinite way, is revealed in the truth that the only God there is consciousness, and since God is the one consciousness, this is the consciousness of individual man, and therefore the consciousness of individual man is his creator, maintainer, and sustainer. Out of the consciousness of individual man must come all that is necessary for his fulfillment. The Master, repeating the revelation of Moses, I am that I am. 21 gave I as the secret name of God. I am the bread, the meat, the wine, and the water. I am the resurrection. 22. I am the way, the truth, and the life. 23. So you must see that even if you destroy this temple, whether it is the temple of your body, of your home, of your family, of your fortune, or of your business, whatever temple you may destroy, I will raise it up again because I is consciousness or God. When man turns anywhere other than to the withinness of his own being for life, supply, harmony, health, wholeness, completeness, success, wisdom, purity, or any other imaginable thing or thought, he is turning to her it is not, and the result is that there are persons of every religion and denomination praying in churches throughout the world. How many of such prayers are answered? And why is this? Because the prayers are addressed to a presence and power separate and apart from the one praying. Whereas if the prayer were addressed to God in the inner sanctuary of his own being, in secrecy, where the Master told us to address it, and then, where the person to pray not for things, not for his life, or what he should eat or drink, but pray for a realization of the nature of the kingdom of God, then all the settings would be added unto him from within the divine consciousness which is his own being. Why does Isaiah say, Is there a God beside me? Yea, there is no God, I. No, not this me, 25 is I, and this I is the infinite, divine consciousness of my individual being. Therefore I am not its master, nor do I have the wisdom to tell it what I want, or when, how much, or how little, nor do I have the wisdom to direct it to anyone else, because the I of me is infinite, divine consciousness, the all-knowing. As revealed in Scripture, God is in the still small voice. 26, and so the life form of true prayer is the inner listening ear. It is for this reason that most important part of our work in the infinite way is meditation, because no one has access to the inner sanctuary of his being, his inner consciousness, except through the listening ear. Meditation is the practice of listening for this still small voice, creating within one's self practically a vacuum in which the presence of God can announce itself. Students complain that this is difficult. It is difficult largely because it has not been practiced for hundreds of years, and they must now learn something that has been out of consciousness for generations. That is noticy. If students are seeking an easy path, they are not going to find it in the infinite way, because the infinite way has no other access to the kingdom of God than through meditation. Any degree of good that a student may receive from a practitioner or a teacher is only of temporary help, because it is still true that while a Moses can lead his flock to the promised land, he cannot take them into it. That they must do for themselves. The Master later confirmed this in his statement, If I go not away, the Comforter will not come unto you. 27 By Comforter, he meant that which completes your demonstration, that which provides you with the ultimate comfort, the full peace, and the fulfillment of your destiny. And even as it came to the Master, as it came to Moses, Elijah, and Isaiah, so must it come to you. Remember that not even Jesus took his disciples into the kingdom of heaven. He left them on earth and told them to remain in that consciousness until they were imbued from on high with spiritual power. A clear indication that the Master felt that his disciples had not yet attained the necessary vision to know how to meditate properly and draw forth from the Father within all that he had been teaching them, which, in the last analysis, must come from the Father within, and not from any external source. Why do you think the Master made it so clear that the kingdom of God is neither lo here or lo there? 28, and that it is not to be found in hollow mountains or in holy temples, but rather it is within you. And why do you think that the mystical poet, Robert Browning, had the vision that truth is within you, and that you must open out a way for the imprisoned splendor to escape? How are you going to do this without meditation, without creating within yourself a vacuum through the listening ear, so that from this divine consciousness can come forth your meat, wine, bread, water, resurrection, and even restore to you the years that the locust hath eaten? 29. If you have not learned from the message of the infinite way that the only good you are ever going to receive is from within your own consciousness, then you have failed to perceive the nature of its message and mission, which is that God constitutes your consciousness, and that through meditation you must draw forth from within your own consciousness the allness and the fulfillment of life. Infinity and immortality are made manifest as the consciousness of the individual, and the name of this divine consciousness, which is our individual consciousness, is I. You must understand that you are not taught to direct this I, enlighten it, plead with it, or try to be a master of it, but that you are to submit and yield yourself servant to the I of your own being. So that your prayer is that I fulfill itself as your individual experience, that I beth grace which is your sufficiency, and then let this I which is your true selfhood govern your life in its own way. When you then go into prayer and meditation, there must be no preconceived idea as to what you want or how you wish your prayer to be answered. There must be a complete yielding as you daily realize, not my will, but thine be done. 30. Do not go to God with your thoughts, and do not try to have God fulfill your way, because you will fail. You must go to God, the divine consciousness of your own being, the very I which you are, with thy's prayer. Reveal to me thy way, thy will, thy thought, and this, then, will be my way, my will, and my thought. Now we come to the revelation of the infinite way that must startle those who are not prepared for it. Nevertheless, until this revelation has been discerned, the fruitage of the message cannot fully come into the experience of an individual. I ask you to look at a tree. It does not make any difference what tree you look at, but look at some tree. You know that from these tree seeds develop, and that these seeds drop into the ground at the foot of the tree, or are carried away by birds and dropped into the ground somewhere else, and that, in time, these seeds become new trees. As you look at the tree, if possible, visualize a seed still on the tree, and then watch the seed drop into the ground. While you are doing this, remember that the life of the tree is the life of the seed. When the seed drops into the ground, the life of the tree is still the life of the seed, and when the seed gets into the earth and breaks open and becomes a root, the life of the tree, which was the life of the seed, is now the life of the root. The root now grows up into a tree, and it is still the life of the tree, which was the life of the seed, which is now the life of the tree. While to sight you have tree, seed, and tree, actually you have only one life manifesting itself as a tree, a seed, and the new tree, always the same life. In using the tree as an example of life expressing itself, what I want you to see is that you are not the tree, that you never were the seed, and that you are not the new tree. You are the life of that first tree, of the seed, and of the next tree. Therefore, your life has been and is continuous since before Abraham was. 31. As a matter of fact, the life of God is your life. Therefore, your life coexisted with God in the beginning, and down through all ages of fathers, mothers, grandfathers, grandmothers, great-grandparents, and on into infinity. But always it is the one life which I am actually, therefore, I am the life of all my ancestors, and I will be the life of all my children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and great-great-grandchildren, because it will be the same life appearing as me, as the seed, as my child, as his seed, and as his child. Always it will be I appearing as. This is my immortality, the immortality of my life manifested as maniforms in many generations. When you look in the mirror, please remember that you are not seeing you. You are seeing your body, just as when you look at the tree, you are not seeing a tree at all. You are seeing the body of a tree, for the tree itself is life. So the self of you, which is I am, is the real you, and the body is on life form, and as you drop a seed, it will still be your life. Then, as your child appears, it will be the life which you are, appearing as another form. And therefore, you are immortalized in your children, and as your children all the way down to the end of time. The secret is, I will never leave thee nor forsake thee. 32 I will be with thee unto the end of time, for I am thee. Since there is but one consciousness, and therefore there can be but one I, remember that I am not only the life of my children and the life of my parents, I am the life of my neighbors, of their cats, their dogs, and their crops, and I am the life of my enemies. It is for this reason that the Master taught us to forgive 70 times 7, to pray for our enemies, and to downtoe others as we would have others do unto us. The reason is that anything you do to another you are doing unto yourself, because there is but one self, and I am that self. Be assured that even the money that you give to benevolences is online being transferred from your right-hand pocket to your left-hand pocket, because I is the only selfhood, and therefore, what you give never leaveth you. This is the bread that you cast on the water of life which comes back to you. The forgiveness that you give to those who have offended you is the forgiving of yourself, because there is no other self than I am, and without forgiving of others, there can be no forgiving of yourself, for I am the and lie other. When you pray for your enemies, you are praying for yourself. You are redoing unto others as you would have others do unto you, and the reason is that the enemy is yourself. Therein is one of the great secrets of mysticism. The 12 disciples of Jesus were not men, they were facets of his own consciousness. The Master embodied within himself the qualities of Peter, John, and Judas. Like it or not, this is the mystical truth. You may think that you have loving friends and unloving ones, but you have neither. These loving friends and unloving friends are qualities of your own consciousness, which are you being externalized. It is as if you were to draw pictures of 12 men and women, any 12 you like, and when you had drawn them, you may be assured that you would have drawn your own concepts of manhood and womanhood, and nothing else, and there would be no use in blaming anybody for how your men and women looked. So you have drawn the pictures of your loving and of your unloving friends, and they are ideas in your mind. You have projected them, and they are your images in thought. The only way they will ever be changed is by changing your concepts of manhood and womanhood, and the higher thadial of manhood and womanhood you attain, the higher manifestation of men and women will be drawn into your experience. Across the desk this comes to you from London, as the year 1963 draws to a close. The most momentous year of my work, since receiving my initiation and instructions in the infinite way in 1946. This year, 1963, the word came home to take our students from metaphysics to mysticism. My personal life has had many difficult periods since my first spiritual experience in 1929, because that experience lifted me into the fourth-dimensional consciousness. And yet I had to live in 2 worlds in order talkery on first a healing ministry, and then both healing and teaching. Except when done in absolute silence, spiritual healing and teaching are conducted out from the ordinary consciousness, and yet the inspiration is always from above. To live in 2 worlds has always been difficult for me, but it has been necessary, as there must be the metaphysical consciousness on earth before the mystical can be attained. In 1959, I was instructed to give a full year of classes on the basic principles of the infinite way, and then begin raising up the Son of God in men. Finally, this year the word came to lift our students out of the metaphysical into the mystical, and this mission was immediately undertaken. First, I gave instructions to ministers and infinite way teachers, instructions which are contained in 5 teaching tapes which have now become available to all students. These give the principles which for all time will establish students on a firm foundation for healing and teaching the infinite way. Regardless of whether anyone ever heals or teaches others, this is his foundation for spiritual unfoldment. Then, with students coming to Hawaii from near and far, I began the transition in consciousness for our students from the metaphysical to the mystical. This work is embodied in the 3 1963 Princess Kaiulani Sunday series tape recordings and the 9 1963 Kailua private class tapes. What measure of grace these bring to anyone, is wholly dependent on the measure of dedication he brings to the study, and especially to the meditation and practice. You may accept this as a major spiritual principle. You receive only in proportion to what you bring or give. There is no such thing as getting spiritually. What you bring or give to any spiritual life is reflected back to you. A parenthesis in eternity 33 is given us at this particular time to make it clear to you and to the world that the day of spiritual grace has come upon the world. Furthermore, ever since its publication, the Contemplative Life 34 has been my Infinite Way Bible. I know that as you come to understand this book, it will be your Bible, too. Regardless of the progress or lack of it in our students, the message is now in consciousness, and its purpose is being served. The unfoldment of truth in consciousness is not dependent on man, but when truth is released, it serves the purpose whereunto it is sent. God's will is being done on earth. If they wish, our students can be instruments of God's grace, but whether they are or not, be assured that God has sent his word into consciousness, and it is now being established and will bear fruit, rich and ripe and abundant.